Okay, welcome to the Homebrew Boys. This is Gregorian Brewing Headquarters. Today's video is going to be a complete start to finish of choosing a recipe, designing a recipe. We're going to show you how to mill the grain. We've got the brew kettle, go every step of the way. The first thing I got to do is try to come up with a recipe. And the recipe is going to be based on what grain I have, plus what yeast I have, plus what hops I have. All right, so come check it out. So we're gonna figure out what we've got to work with. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Mount Hood. What is this? Some Chinook. Feels like there's some good supply in there. This is all a homegrown Centennial. So Centennial is supposed to be kind of a citrusy flavor. I'm probably gonna do a whole bunch of Centennial in this one. But I want to experiment, I want to mix it up. So I might go with some Hallertau. While I'm trying to sort out the recipe, the one thing that we do know with absolute certainty is that we need some water. The plan here is to pump out about 12 gallons of completed product. Yes, I'm filling this with a garden hose, and that garden hose is being fed by PVC. It's homebrew, bro. This is not pro. Tastes like pro. But for now, it's working. I'm actually plugging into the Brewfather app the type of hops, and I'm writing down the alpha percentage in there, and the app is going to take all the other stuff. Right now, it's just Pilsner malt, a bit of wheat malt, because I know I got both those, and they go together really nice. US05 yeast, and it's got all that other information, but as soon as I put this in at 12.1 and I had 4 ounces to boil, it jumped my IBU up to 80. I like a really clean light beer. I don't like a very bitter beer. So we're not freaking using that for our bittering. Hashtag Brewfather, give me free shit. What I now know is that my strike temp is 155 and I need 17.92 gallons of mash water, and I'm literally just above the 18-gallon line, like just. So I'm not screwing with that. Next step, milling the grain. That is right about 10 pounds. Okay, now we got a bit of a problem. So the recipe was going to be 20 pounds of Pilsner malt, 4 pounds of wheat malt. Problem is, I just dumped in 10 pounds of Pilsner, and then I just emptied the rest of the bag, and there's 1 pound left. So we're making this up as we go along. We're going to go with 11 pounds of Pilsner. There that goes. And we're going to add probably 10 pounds. I think we're going to do 10 pounds of Rahr 2-row. There it is. 154.9, 155.3. We're going. Hey, flame off. We get complete saturation of the grain. You don't want it clumped up. You don't want anything dry. The real nice setups will actually pump water from the bottom, trickle it down over the top, circulate in the water, get a bit more efficiency out of the mash. We don't have that luxury, so we've got a stick. Okay, we got about 10 minutes left on the mash. It's been about 90 minutes. Well, it's been about 80 minutes. The next step is to boil. But what we gotta do is we gotta get that bag of mash out of there. Now coming up to temperature, the next step is to prepare our hops. Hops are going to go in at different intervals. In this case, hops are going to go in 4 times during the course of this brew. First one, we're going to go Mandarina Bavaria for 60 minutes. That's how long we boil it. So once this comes up to a boil, start the timer at 60 minutes, hops goes in. With 20 minutes left in the boil, Mount Hood. That's going to go in 2 ounces of that. The longer you boil it, the more bittering you get. If it doesn't boil at all, you don't get any bittering, just flavor. And I'm going to play with this Bavaria. Typically, you'd use it as a finishing hops, not a bittering hops. But I like experimenting, and I really don't know how or why or what, so I'm going to do it anyway. Why the hell they call it a hop spider? That one never made sense to me. Okay, we need 2 ounces of that. Oh boy. Call that nailed it. This is the scariest part. Right when you're about to boil, this starts to foam up. And if you're not on it, it'll overboil. Or it'll boil over. Once you get a rolling boil, see the bubbles starting to form there? This is a mix of trying to get it to roll and take out the foam on its own. And it's a mix of clearing the surface and getting the adjustment on the burner just right. Because if it's too hot, it just boils over. And if it's not hot enough, you're not maintaining a good roll and boil. So, now that we've got that under control, this is where it's going to explode again as soon as I dump this in. Okay, now we're in the cool down phase. So I just shut the heat off. I've got hot water, cold water running through a copper coil in there, and I'm gonna add the flame out hops, which is 2 ounces of Centennial, and this is fresh, well, frozen fresh hops, not the pellet stuff. Okay, we've got our wort cooled down. We're now going to take our hose, freshly sanitized. We're going to start pumping out some wort. Now what you want to do is agitate this as much as possible. You want to oxygenate this as much as possible. When the yeast goes in, the first thing it does, now I might screw this up, I might get these backwards, I'm not a scientist, but the first thing it does is called anaerobic metabolism, which means it uses oxygen, it basically feeds off of the oxygen. That allows the yeast to multiply. Once the oxygen in the wort is depleted, it switches to anaerobic metabolism, and in which case now it starts feeding off the sugars, the byproduct of which is alcohol. Probably a bunch of other stuff. I'm sure there's proteins and nutrients and something a chemist or a brewmaster can tell you about. But the bottom line is you need oxygen in there for the yeast to multiply before it starts the conversion. see the 4, not much more than what I had earlier. I'm gonna go with 1040. It's right there. This is our hydrated yeast that we prepared earlier. Fermenter is set to 18, it's coming up to temp. They're going in. Then you take your temperature probe, you make sure this is on the carboys, not on the side of the cooler or near the heater. Preferably somewhere right in the center. You get an accurate temperature. And that's it. That's a full brew day. Okay, take it time. We're going to try to fill these 2 kegs equally between these 2 carboys. So I'm going to take one as down as far as I can until I get to that trub, and but equally dispersed between the 2 kegs. Okay, the big key with this is having that line as deep into the keg as possible. We don't have a purge system. I can't purge the oxygen out. You want as little oxygen in there as possible. So you don't want to agitate it. You don't want to aerate it. Pretty much the opposite of when we filled up the carboys. Now, if you have been following this entire video and you want to see more of this how-to and learn as I learn, because I'm a rookie at this, hit the subscribe button. It's going to be probably right there. It could be over there. I really don't know. While it's fermenting, if you look in it, which you probably shouldn't, if you look in it while it's fermenting, all of the nutrients, whatever that grows with the yeast, all surfaces. It sits on the surface. It's this crazy pile of just gunk. When you cold crash it, all that stuff drops to the bottom. And anybody that says don't use plastic carboys, fuck that. You know how much easier these are to clean? You gotta be careful. You don't want to scratch them, but you don't clean them with, Scotch-Brite. Clean them with a microfiber, some powdered brewer's wash, and a good high-pressure hose. And you're laughing. Absolutely laughing. These things work so well. The glass ones are an absolute nightmare to clean. So, final specific gravity. I'm gonna call that 1.09. There's the 10 is buried. The 10 is there, but it's buried. I'm gonna go with 1.009. Now, we're going to plug that in. We're going to find out what the alcohol by volume is. But before we do that, we are going to taste this. This is pre-carbonated, but it's going to give us a really good idea of how our flavor profile, how it all went together. I made up this recipe. I have no idea. I hope it's not gross. Ooh. Oh, that's going to be good. Oh, that's going to be... Okay. Okay, listen. If you brew at home, follow the steps I just did. That's going to be very drinkable. It's like... Listen, I don't know how to describe stuff very well. You get a bit of the pale. You certainly get a little bit of the wheat. It's not bitter, but it's very, very flavorful. I don't know how to describe the flavors. That's good. Oh. Normally I would do this outside the kegerator, but now it just happens to be empty, and I happen to be set up for 3 kegs, which means I can carbonate all 3 of these at the same time. The first thing I'm going to do is one by one. I'm actually going to hook this up
where it says out. And that's going to force the CO2 to the bottom of the tank. I'm going to circulate the pressure relief valve, and what that's going to do is force CO2 from the bottom and try to purge out any oxygen that's in there, as well as force carbonate the beer, hopefully making it a faster carbonation to begin with. That sound is money. That's exactly the sound you want to hear. And then when I do this, you're going to hear it again. Oh, that's the sound of freaking beer being ready right there. Okay, get a little bit of liquid out of there. These ball locks, you have to change the seals in these every once in a while. I can see this one starting to bubble a little bit, but I think it's holding pressure. Oh. It's like whales singing. It's a beautiful sound, really. It's in. At about 20 psi. All three valves are open. We're at 4 degrees only because I've had the door open. So we are going to shut this down, leave these at 20 degrees for 2 days, and then I get to drink it. Here we go. That's you know, I don't know what step we're on, but that's the best step, really. I mean, that's what it's all about. Thank you so much for joining us this far. This is the Homebrew Boys. We're going to drink this very shortly, but that was from grain to keg. If you got any questions, comment, shoot me a message, find me on Instagram, find me on TikTok. Welcome to the Homebrew Boys. Thank you very much for joining. Subscribe somewhere there.